Okay, good morning. So we are now beginning Siman Shin Yud Tes. We're beginning Siman Shin Yud Tes. We started the Hakdama. We did the Hakdama yesterday, and to remind ourselves, we're doing Hilchos Borah, a very relevant, applicable malacha that applies almost every Shabbos. And we said yesterday that there are three rules that you need to tick all three boxes to avoid problems of Borah, and the three rules are. Number one, it's got to be Eichel Metoich Pseiles. When you select something, it's got to be the good from the bad. Number two, it's got to be Miyad for immediate use. And number three, it's got to be Biyad with your hand or a fork or an extension of your hand, something like that. So that's what we established in the Hakdama. Now let's go straight into the Mechaba. Says the Mechaba's Shin Yud Tes Seif Aleph. Haboira Eichel Metoich Pseiles. Someone who selects the good from the bad, the oichel from the pseiles, or he has two types of food, and he chooses one from the other, benofa or kvara, with a sieve or with a strainer, chayev, because he's slipped up on the box of biyad, he's used the kli, so then he'll be chayev. That's an issa deraisa. But konon of a tamchu, if he uses some sort of cone or a tamchu like a dish, that Mr. Burr will explain, pot aval also, then it's an issa drabonon. But if he selects with his hand for immediate use, then it's muta. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Burr till there. Sif Cotton Aleph. Benofa of chuvara chayev. Shezeu derech birosai. Because that is the normal way of doing it, of selecting. So even if he intended to eat straight away, you've messed up. You've got to tick all three boxes to overcome the problem of boireh. If you slip up on one, then you're in trouble. So even if he eats straight away, but if he uses a nof and a kvara, then he's going to be chayev. However, if he uses a knoin and a tamchui, then it's not chayev midaraisa. It's going to be an issa drabanan. Pirush Rashi. What are these things? Rashi explains, says in the Mishnah, konoin who kli eats, it's a wooden vessel, she'oisen ke'ein sinor, and it becomes like some sort of tube. Rochav mitzad echod, v'kotze mitzad echod. It's wider at the top, and then it's narrower at the other side. V'habore kinyas nosen esom b'tzad harochav. When you want to select good beans and discard the bad ones, you put them in the wider top, and then you sort of shake it around. And they sort of gravitate towards the smaller opening. And the pseiles, the bad, the refuse, the waste, which are not perfectly round, the sharim bakli, they will still stay in the kohen. There's some sort of separating instrument. But again, it's not the nof and the kvara, so it's not a deraisa, but it's still some sort of separating instrument, and therefore it's asim drabonim. So that's the konon. What about the tamchui? So the tamchui says mishbura hu hakar gedola or pata aval asa. So it's some sort of big dish or pata aval asa. There it's an issa drabonon to have a boire kal achayad. You're doing not sort of some sort of boire with a shinui. Because the real way of doing boira is with a nof and a kvara, is with a sieve and with a strainer. Now, that's dafka if he takes the eichel from the pseiles. But if he takes the pseiles from the eichel, then it's no good. Okay. So that's that. So just to summarize what we said, remember the three rules of boira. That will solve all the problems. Eichel Metoich Pseiles, Biyad, Miyad. It's got to be the good from the bad. It's got to be with a hand and not a sort of a straining sieve, a separating instrument. And it's got to be Miyad for immediate use. And if he does all three, then you're okay to go. Now, continues the Ramah. V'chol mashe boire letzorech oisa su'uda. And anything which a person selects, for that suda, shemesiv bo miyad, mikra altas. Now says the Ramah, what is the definition of miyad, the third category? It's anything which is needed, letzorech oisa suda, shemesiv bo miyad. That meal which you're about to eat, that's called la'alta, that's called the mikra la'alta, which is another saying miyad. And even if other people are eating with you, that would be allowed. Now this is very important. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Daled, V'chol ma shebayir rotz leima. Afilu yarich zman hasuda kama shoyz mikri la'alta. Even if the meal will go on for a long time, it's called la'alta. Kiven shabreira he samach l'suda, because you're doing it samach l'suda. So let's say, for example, you're calling Shabbos lunch for 1 o'clock, 1 p.m., and you want to start preparing, and the meal may go on for 2 or 3 hours, may go on till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But if I'm preparing for that meal now, that's called samach l'suda. It's not the end of the meal, it's for the beginning of the meal which I'm about to partake in. Now, if you look at footnote 7, the big question is, well, how long is that? What's la'alta? What's samach l'suda? It's a bit of a vague term, close to the meal. So Ramosha famously says, if you look at number 7, what is defined as the altar? So if you look at the next paragraph, the top of the left column, about 6 or 7 lines down, he quotes the famous Ramosha. There's no specific zman. It's not like 37 minutes or whatever it may be. It's whatever's needed. And therefore, if you've got a large crowd coming for Shabbos lunch, it could be a long time. If you've got a small crowd, then it can be a shorter time. It depends what is needed for that meal. So, for example, if you're calling lunch at 1 o'clock and you've got this Shabbos, we're making Sheva Rochos. So, we're making a Shalosh Shudas at 8 o'clock. So, we've got, I don't know how many people we've got, 30, 40 people. So, it could take a couple of hours to prepare for it, more. So, it could be very easily argued that Samach L'Suda is 2 or 3 hours before that time. Mash'enkein, if it's a very small Shabbos meal and you've just got a few people, then Samach L'Suda is going to be much less than that. It could be 10, 20 minutes. So it depends whatever's needed for that meal. That's the geder, right? And then if you look, then he has just a very interesting question. If you jump down a couple of paragraphs, the paragraph beginning V'hayotze, footnote number 7, V'hayotze me'beisei l'mokum acher, someone who goes to his house to somewhere else, he wants to take something to use in that place. So she wants to take clothes for the kids to wear when they get to this place. Let's say they're going to play in the afternoon, and they want to wear change out of their Shabbos finest, and so she's got to go to the cupboard and choose begodim for the kids for later. But let's say they're leaving at 12 o'clock on Shabbos morning, after shul or something, and she's going to go somewhere for lunch, and later at 3, 4 in the afternoon, they're going to play and they want to get into their, less not the finest Shabbos clothes. So can she start doing a Maisa Beirev, going through the kids' cupboards and taking out the clothes she wants, but she's leaving in a few minutes. So she wants to take them now, but they're not going to be used till 4 o'clock. That's the shaila he's dealing with. That's not straight away, but I don't need it till 4 o'clock. However, das Hagon of Shmuel Vosna, she'af ze nechshev kedova nitzrach la'alta. So the Machlikas and Poskim. Reb Shlomo Zalman and Reb Nissim Karelitz say no, because it's not for immediate use. Reb Shmuel Vosna says it is, because you're going now, you need it now, and even though it's going to be used later, right now, this is when you're leaving home, and therefore you're allowed it. So that's just an interesting application of this sort of issue. Okay, L'Tzoyrech. Sorry, say that again, Shol. A tie? Yeah, very good. So I often give this example to the boys in my shir. I say to them that on Friday nights, let's say when I try and explain the rules, I always give this example. Friday night, they're very organized and they want to choose what they're going to wear for the shul the next day. So before they go to bed on Friday night, they want to choose, am I going to take the blue tie, the yellow tie, or the red tie? So if they go to their cupboard and take out the blue tie, and they put it ready for tomorrow, that's a violation of Boira. Because have I taken the Eichel Motech Pseles? Yes. The blue, that's for me, that's the Eichel. Is it Biyad? Yes, I haven't used a sieve or an instrument, but it's not Miyad because I'm not wearing it now. I'm doing it for tomorrow morning. It's got to be now. For immediate use, it'll be fine. But if I'm taking it for tomorrow morning, then I've got a problem. If I'm taking it to put on now, then there's no problem. Yeah, that's a good example. Okay, see if... Oh, we'll come to that. That's a big shaila in Beira, yeah. Okay, L'Tzoyrech, Sif Kotzen Hey, Sifim Kavan also Kadesh Yishtai, Gamach Asuda, Asuda Cheres, chayiv chatas. And if you intend for it to be for a later suda for another time, then it's not miyad, and therefore you've messed up on burn and you're chayiv chatas. Achim memela nishtayim mibrasa. But if it inevitably leaves over mibrasa adlach hasuda ein bekach klum kim shekvav beira beheta. So if you make a salad, and you're starting, you're choosing or you're doing a ma'aser beira. Let's say you go into your cupboard and you want to pull out some Coke Zero. You don't want the Coke and you don't want the 7-Up and you don't want the Fanta. You want Coke Zero, right? So that's a ma'aser beira because you've got a whole bunch of drinks there and you want to take out. So if it's Tomach L'Suda, then no problem. Now, if you have you take out a couple of bottles and let's say you only use one bottle. So but the fact that you've got one bottle over is not you haven't violated beira because at the time you wanted 2 bottles. That's what you thought you would need. If there's some left over, that's not a problem. Okay, Sivkot involved. Even if other people are eating in the meal, so I'm choosing not just for my own personal use, but I'm using for all the people. That's just the normal way of doing it. Even if I'm not eating with them, let's say I'm helping my wife set up the Shev Brachos, but I happen to be not there. I'm going elsewhere. So that's okay. If I'm doing it for other people, that's also allowed. Okay, let's carry on. Says the Ramah now. V'lochein, 4 lines down. V'lochein, muta livrer hayerek shekerin salatin. You're allowed to take the leaves, i.e. the good stuff, the good leaves, min ha'olin ha'mu'ufashin, from the moldy leaves shabai, because that's oichel metoich b'seiles. Kol ma shetzarech le'echol ba'isa suda. So if I'm making a salad and I want to take the good leaves and discard the bad leaves, no problem. Oichel metoich b'seiles, I'm taking the good leaves. Miyad, biyad, no problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkot Zayin, Livra HaYerek, V'davka ba'ofen zeh da'ave oichel min ha'b'seiles. Davka, I'm taking the good leaves from the bad leaves. Avaloi lehepech, but not, I can't take off the bad leaves and get rid of them. Little ha'olin ha'muposhin min ha'tovim, da'ave b'oyer b'seiles min oichel v'chayev. Even if the bad leaves are not bad, they're not terrible. You could eat them at a stretch. At the end of the day, for you want to discard them, so therefore they are pseles. But even though they could be eaten al de'atchak, still it's considered a pseles. Mina alin, v'adin kashemunach the fun of kidneys. So too, you've got in front of you beans, a sharp pears or fruit, v'yesh ben metulai mupashim, and you've got good fruit and bad fruit, or some fruit which is a bit moldy or something like that. V'chein perish and oflu la'aretz v'nisarvu ba'afar b'saras. Or you've got fruit which fall on the ground and they've become dusty or dirty. Yizoy shelo yivrar b'yodo rak ma shetzorach la'isa suda sheretz lechol tekov v'lo yoseh. You can only take the stuff that you need right now, the oichem teich b'sedes, for what you need for the suda, to oz chayev, because not more. Because if you take 20 apples when you only need a few, then that's a ma'aser beira. Okay, so these are just applications of the 3 rules. Let's do Sif base. If you take food, but it's not miyad, it's not for immediate use, to leave it for later that day, it's as if you've done it for storage and not for now, and therefore you'd be chayev. Says the Mishnah Berurah, because if you take the pseles from the eichel, then immediately you're going to be chayev, because you slipped up on that rule. When it says biyod, because it says if you've taken the eichel, the pseles from eichel, then even if then you've slipped up. And when he says biyod, true, even if you take it with a knen or a tamcha, you're also going to slip up. Nase the roiv inyone breira hu ala achazman, because generally speaking, when you do an act of separating, it's la'achazman, it's for a later time. The la'alta derech meichel hu livra eichel napselis beis achila, because when it's for immediate use, that's called derech achila. That's how I eat the foods for straight away. For oz derech livra bechol davar afilu biyada, because when I'm doing it for immediate use, that's how you do it. For kolshkein be'ezek kli. But if I use a sieve or a sifter, I shall bury up pseles min eichel, or if I take away the pseles, the minkar milsa de l'shem breiru, then it's clear that I'm doing a ma'aser breira. I feel la'al t'chayev then if I'm using instruments, then I've slipped up on the biyad rule, and therefore I'm going to be chayiv even if I do it for immediate use. For chayiv al kein yesh lizoya, says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Aleph, you've got to be careful. But so you know what the Chavetz Chaim, what they had in his day for Shalosh Shudas, they would take some cucumbers and they would pickle them and they would have it for Shalosh Shudas. So you got to be careful. Or Berin Ha'olin HaTovim, they would take these leaves from the onion leaves and they would select the good ones, minha k'moishim v'hamusulayim, from the bad ones. Shelo yasu zerak somach l'suda. That you can only do to take the good leaves from the bad leaves that you've prepared. You can only do that close to the shalosh shudas, close to the meal you're about to have. For gami zoy shelo yivraham kumushim min hatovim. Also be careful when you separate them. Separate the good from the bad, and not the kumushim from the tovim, not the withered ones from the good ones. The havirak p'solis menoichel, which you've stepped up on that one. Or kumushi kosov b'sif cotton zayin. Or b'shilti geberim kosov the nog lahochin zeh me'erev Shabbos. The best thing to do if you're making this particular dish, this pickles onions or whatever, to do it before Shabbos, to kosh lizoy ben yonah ber b'zeh, because it's easy to slip up. V'hina machme v'isa kein tov alav bracha. And if you're careful to do it before Shabbos, tov alav bracha. Or mikam mokum ein limchus b'yata mikilin ochem mechin b'Shabbos. You have to protest those who do it on Shabbos. The yochel ismech al armo hanal b'sif alef b'hagah ach sheizoy b'chol ma shekazavna. Just do it properly. So to summarize what we said, that these are just lots of different applications of the three rules of Beireh. Biyad, miyad. It's got to be the good from the bad, and it's got to be biyad, not a sieve or a sifter or something like that, and it's got to be miyad for immediate use. What is immediate use? So the famous Ramah is miyad, which is a very subjective term. It depends on the number of people and things like that.
Does it depend? Is it your earliest opportunity, or, so for example, if you would need to prepare for Shabbos, but you were out for Shabbos?
Oh, so that's a big question. We'll come to that. That's a big question. So this comes up, Maisim B'chol Shabbos. Let's say the wife wants to go to shul, and let's say she wants to go at 10 o'clock to go to shul, and then when they get home, there's going to be a guest coming back with them for lunch. So she wants to do Ma'aseh Beireh at 9 o'clock to set the table, to make the salads or whatever, but it's not so much chasuda. So that we'll talk about. That's a great question.
If you want to, for example, Friday night, drinks in the fridge.
Oh, so a good question. So if putting drinks in the fridge, so let's say you want to put out, you've got a lot of people coming for Shabbos lunch, and it's a hot day, and you want to put 6 bottles of Coke in the fridge so they're nice and cold. So if it does take a long time for the drinks to cool, so putting them in an hour before won't do it. They need to be there for several hours for them to cool properly. So then that would be okay. Because it would need, that's the somach, it's whatever is required. It depends what your somach l'suda is, but it's the tzorech, the lashon of the Ramah is the tzorech eisasuda. So sometimes it will take several hours.
Yeah, you said as well that you shouldn't take more than what you need.
Yeah.
And you're further in footnote 7 that if you take more than what you need, it's okay.
Where does it say that?
When you said about the
It shouldn't be for, in other words,
bottles instead of 2 bottles.
yeah, so my point was that if you wanted to have, you say you think you need 2 bottles for this meal, so you take 2 bottles, then that's what's appropriate. Don't take 20 bottles, don't take 10 bottles. But if you only happen to drink 1, and you got the estimate a little bit wrong, okay, not the end of the world, that's okay. You haven't violated Beireh because you thought you needed 2 bottles. That was a reasonable estimate. Say that. By the way, one thing we said right, another time.